Ever notice how we're always talking about generations? Boomers, millennials, Gen Z. They get all the memes, all the headlines. But what about that quiet generation? The one kind of sandwiched right in the middle. The one that seems to just fly under the radar.
Well, that's what we're going to dig into today. We're going to unpack the psychology of Generation X, the folks born roughly between 1965 and 1980. These are the people who, quietly built a lot of the world we're living in right now, but they rarely seem to make a big fuss about it.
I mean, just look at this. It kind of says it all, right? Other generations get these loud, sometimes funny, sometimes kind of annoying labels. But Gen X, they're often just a question mark. They're definitely around, but they have this strange cultural invisibility. So what is going on inside their heads?
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to break down the Gen X mindset by looking at 5 really key pieces. Their whole invisible generation vibe, the fact they were pretty much raised without applause, why they always seem to plan for the worst, their belief that competence is the only thing that matters, and finally, their unique role as the last analog bridge.
So let's start with this idea of the invisible generation. What's so wild about this is the paradox. I mean, these are the people who literally built the early internet that we are all completely addicted to, yet so many of them have this tiny, almost non-existent social media presence. They have this huge, unspoken influence, but they don't seem to want or need the credit. Why is that?
To get that, you have to go right to the core of their childhood, what we're calling the latchkey kid crucible. And listen, this wasn't some quirky thing you saw in a sitcom. For millions of kids, this was the formative experience that basically hardwired their entire psychology.
Just look at this number. By 1984, about 7 million kids between 5 and 13 were on their own after school on a regular basis. 7 million. That's not the exception. That was becoming the rule. It was a generation that learned, at a really young age, a very hard lesson. Nobody is coming to save you. And this captures that daily reality perfectly. You'd have the house key on a shoelace around your neck, you'd let yourself into a totally silent, empty house, pour yourself a bowl of cereal for dinner, and then just wait. There were no cell phones, no check-in texts. You were just on your own to figure things out. Now, there's actually a psychological term for this, a high-contingency environment. All that really means is your brain gets trained to know that your actions have direct, immediate consequences. There's no buffer. You couldn't text mom to ask if your friend could come over. You just made a call and you live with whatever happened next. It forced a level of self-reliance and foresight that is just fundamental to who they are. So you've got this foundation of intense self-reliance, and then on top of that, the world around them just kept seeming to break its promises. It forced them to build this kind of emotional armor by always planning for the absolute worst. Think about what they saw as kids. Divorce rates went through the roof, shattering the whole idea of the stable family. Watergate taught them, don't trust the government. Then as they got older, corporate downsizing showed them that company loyalty was a joke, a one-way street. And the AIDS crisis proved that the people in charge could be horrifically negligent. The message over and over again was clear. The system will let you down. And all of this creates a mindset that psychologists call defensive pessimism. Now, this isn't about being negative just for the fun of it. It's a super practical coping mechanism. You hope for the best, of course, but you always have a backup plan because your own experience has taught you that the worst-case scenario happens a lot. This entire history directly plugs into how they see our modern world. And this quote, this one really nails it. They grew up in a time when privacy was the default setting, not something you had to constantly manage and fight for. Just think about it this way. In the past, if you did something dumb as a teenager, maybe 10, 15 people knew about it. It was embarrassing for a week, and then it was gone. Now, one mistake can become a permanent, global, searchable digital tattoo. So for Gen X, broadcasting your whole life online, that doesn't feel free. It feels reckless. They learned early on, the less people know about you, the safer you are.
Okay, so you take all that psychology, how does it actually show up at the office? Well, for Gen X, there's really only one currency that matters, and that is competence. They operate on this very specific and often totally misunderstood, unspoken work code.
So the code kind of goes like this. Your goal isn't to be visible. It's to be valuable, to be indispensable. Your loyalty isn't to some company that could lay you off tomorrow. It's to your own skills. You automatically question a title, but you deeply respect competence. And because they were raised to handle their own stuff, they're going to try to solve their own problems first before they ever ask for help. It's a pretty simple ethos, really. Just show up, do the work, and please skip the drama. And you have to understand this pragmatism is born from trauma. Look at this economic timeline. The oldest members of Gen X graduated right into a nasty recession. The ones in the middle got slammed by the dot-com bust. And the youngest came of age just in time for the 2008 financial crisis to completely torch the economy. They learned, in their bones, that nothing is guaranteed and every job is temporary.
So yeah, this has a huge impact on how they see authority. For them, respect is never, ever automatic. It has to be earned. If your authority comes from proven skill, from deep knowledge, if you are a true master of your craft, they will follow you anywhere. But if your authority is just based on a fancy title and you talk a good game, they have absolutely zero time for that. They've just seen way too many empty suits make terrible decisions.
And that brings us to our final and maybe most important point. Gen X has this completely unique place in history as the last generation to have a fully formed childhood and adulthood before the internet just changed everything. They're the bridge from a world before Google.
You can really think of them as the bridge generation. They are the true middle child of modern history, connecting two profoundly different worlds. And, just like a real bridge, they do all the hard work of holding everything together without getting much notice or credit for it. This quote just sums it up so perfectly. They actually remember a time when getting information took real effort, when fixing something meant you had to tinker and figure it out yourself, when just being bored was a normal part of life, not a problem to be solved with a screen. That whole perspective, that way of thinking is completely unique to them.
And all of this, it leaves us with a really big, kind of uncomfortable question for right now. In our world of constant connection and instant answers, what have we actually lost by never being bored? What skills, what kind of creativity, what kind of thinking have we traded away for convenience? It's a question that the experience of this quiet generation really forces us all to think about.